They know you get money, well, how are you spending it? Is this your passion or is it about Benjamins? Is it about cash or the fact that you didn't quit? Talk to me, let's sip on some wine. Discussion about future, the past, and the grind. What's an excuse when it's last on your mind? I love what you do, may I ask for your time?
Thank you for tuning in to the Talk to Me podcast. I'm your favorite host on the East Coast, Don Worm, and as you can see, I'm with my other co-host, Big Tyke, a.k.a. the Greek Stallion. Let's get it. Stop playing with that boy. And hopefully this is a familiar face to you guys. If not, without further ado, this is an upcoming comedian in the Northern Virginia area that goes by the name of Matthew Deakins. Let's get it popping, bro. How you doing, man?
Good job, man. You were real worried about getting my name right, and you nailed it, dude. First try. I didn't get a cool nickname, though. I'm kind of mad about that. You guys both got Sunshine. Sweet nicknames. There you go, dude. That makes me feel a little better.
Hey, had to steal one from college.
I've been trying to bury that one. I don't want people to know about that one.
Oh, well, since we're on the topic of it, where does that come from? I was under the impression that was your actual stage name, but there's some other underlying story for that?
No, I played quarterback, and I'm beautiful, so people always called me Sunshine.
There you go, boy. Okay.
Hey, yeah, don't let this quarantine fool you guys. Under that all this shit, my man was a good looking dude back in the day.
Come on, dude. I'm just keeping it hidden right now for the winter. It's like a protective layering, and then we'll break it out, dude.
I feel it.
I'm not trying to impress anybody right now. I'm just hanging out with my cat.
I'm not either. Whole time I had to get a fade. But
I'm with you, dog. I got my hat on too. I can't. I'm looking a little bit rough.
Yeah, Dom's just mad because he can't grow any facial hair.
Exactly.
He's got that little Puerto Rican mustache going right now, dude. don't show that to the camera, dude. That's nothing to be impressed by. Come on.
All right, I'm off you. All right, so it's Matthew Deakins as far as your stage name, right? What is it?
Yeah, I don't really have a stage name. People, I just say my name.
True,
I like to put the comedian afterwards, but just once in a while.
So like I said, we went to school together back in 2012. Not even going to say the name of the school. I disrespect.
What? Why?
But
let's bring up the school. Let's bring up the school that you did not graduate from, dude.
Well, I transferred.
Did you transfer, dude? I think I don't know. That's not the story I heard.
St. Vincent College in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. So I all I remember of you was you coming in my dorm or coming in my pod at 9:30 on a Saturday, getting the biggest bottle of Gatorade, it's 2 quarts of Gatorade, right? This is 9:30, 9 o'clock. You got vodka in it, most likely it's Aristocrat because we was that.
Yep. Straight Aristocrat.
Full thing of Red Bull in it. And I used to be like, yo, what the hell is you doing? You would come in and start screaming nonsense at 9:30 while all of us are asleep. I'm like, yo, what the fuck?
Day drinking, dude. I was trying to harden you. All right, dude. You were a soft young man at the time.
I was.
You had those baby cheeks, and I was just trying to welcome you to Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure you scared him away because you met him his first year. I met him his second year, and he still came. When I met him at school, he was still a bitch. So
you still well. I'll tell you who did it to me. It was a friend of the pod, Jalen Settles.
Was it? I know that.
Yeah, shout out to
Oh,
Jalen. He turned me into an alcoholic in high school, so I was coming fresh out of that.
I've been around a couple of those days with Jalen as well. So
that's my man.
Yeah. You can't drink with Jalen because you have no idea when he's fucked up. He seems sober. He seems sober the entire night.
No bullshit.
And you're like, there's no way. And then when he is drunk, he just disappears. So it's not like you ever even get to see him hammered. You look around and where'd Jalen go?
I don't know, man. All right, so basically what I was saying is, what got you into comedian? What one day you was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna try it," or what's the story behind it?
I don't know. I've always been into comedy. I always liked stand up, but I did a pod. You remember Sean Kett up there, St. Vincent College?
Sean Kett?
Yeah, he played basketball. Sean Cat makes me wet. You know, people used to.
Got you. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Not because you said that, but I got you.
So you got a little tingling down there, and you're like, okay, I remember Sean Cat. I saw that little smile come across your face.
Chill out.
All right. Settle down. Yeah, we used to do a podcast together, and one of the times we went and did stand up at some fucking terrible open mic in Pittsburgh with like 12 drunk yinzers who were just shouting at us on stage and not paying attention. And I was like, yeah, I bombed so bad. I was like, I can't let that be the last time I go up. I got to go again. So
let me ask you this. So when you went up there the first time, were you just like, fuck it, I'm going to try this and just do it? Or did you go out there and you were like, actually, I've got some jokes written down that I've been trying to do. I got some punchlines that I'm trying to figure out. Like,
oh, yeah. I had like a 10-minute story written down that I was going to do word for word. And the moment that I got up there, I forgot every single word. So that's, you know. That's a really effective way to do stand-up, is to just have no idea what you're about to say.
And just go off the cuff?
Yes.
You
roll with it. Yeah. It went really well.
Well, to be honest, that's like real discouraging. You would think like the first time going up there and being like fumbling the ball like that, it's like you either commit right there, you're going to do it again, or you either give it up.
Yeah, you know, luckily I'd been hardened from going 0-20 as a as a quarterback at St. Vincent College. So I was pretty used to taking an L. So it's all about, you just keep it rolling, you know.
Right. That was nothing at that point.
You put on the blinders, you keep going out there. I looked at it like at least nobody tackled me while I was on stage.
Yeah, 100%. No tomato thrown at you, right?
No, I didn't wake up with a concussion. You know, it felt pretty good. Yeah, once you have 2,000 people boo you, you know, it doesn't really bother you when there's like 7 drunk dudes in a Pittsburgh bar not paying attention. Yeah, so it's cool. All I remember distinctly was that the first time a train was right next to the bar, and so a train drove by and beeped its horn while I was in the middle of my set. So that's pretty much my only memory from that first set.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it was like an act of God. There was nothing could have gone right in that scenario.
I got you. So that was how long ago you said that was?
That would have been a year after, probably 2.5 years ago. About 3 years ago now. Yeah.
Okay. And how many shows have you done since then?
I'd say somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000.
God damn, really?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Whoa.
Yeah, I've been up probably since then, you know, up once I moved back to DC, up almost every night. So,
wow. I bet it's huge in DC.
It's a good scene. It's like compared to, it's not, you know, it's not New York, it's not LA, but right under that tier 2, and you can get on stage a lot and you can get a lot of time. So it's a good little scene.
Wow, I didn't know that. 2,000 shows. Holy cow, man.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that either. But
So let me ask you this. I know Dom's got a few questions he wants to ask you, but since we're on that topic, so out of all those shows that you go on, do you have like different sets and scripts of things that you say? Like, how many times are you redoing the same set? Like, are you going in there each night depending on the crowd, on how you're about to speak? Like, you know, how do you go in there knowing like your target audience? Do you have it for a target audience, or you just go off the cusp, or how does that go down?
Yeah, it's I mean, it's probably a mixture of all those things, you know. You're kind of playing off what the crowd's doing. It just depends on the night. There's some nights you go up there, you just do your straight material, your A stuff, because you need to kill that night. You need to have like a good set and do well. And then there's other nights where you just bullshit and work on some stuff you're trying out, you know. I mean, you do shows in so many different places that like you got to be used to doing a show in like Winchester, Virginia, where Dom's from. You know, they're not going to be into the same shit that like a crowd in like DuPont circle is going to be into, you know.
Right. Okay, that was more what I was wondering about. If you have to kind of cater towards.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about the same subjects. You just have to be prepared that they're not going to react to it the same way, and then you know, temper what, you know, kind of frame what you're saying with that in mind.
100%.
Yeah, but there's still nothing like you can't talk about in front of certain audiences. It's just how you talk about it with them.
Got you. Okay.
Has there ever been?
Damn, you took 2 drinks, man. You can't even ask questions anymore. This interview's gone to shit. 2 sips in, dude. You're stumbling.
Has there ever been like a time where you thought you would be like going, like maybe like you had second thoughts of like, man, I don't know if I should say this joke, but fuck it, and it went totally left?
Yeah. Oh, you want bombing stories,
I know,
dude?
I know you got some like hillbilly story, like jokes, and they was like, hold up, who do you call in a hillbilly? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got anything like that?
Yeah, I've had plenty. I've gotten in 2 physical altercations in the 2.5 years, and I've gotten in plenty of verbal altercations. And, I mean, so you're in a place where everyone's hammered, and you're saying things specific. Depending on the type of humor you're doing, I'm not really going up there and being like, "Well, my mom and dad," I'm trying to rile people up a little bit. So, like, you got to know that sometimes there's consequences for that, and people don't want to take shit. I did a show in Manassas, where I'm from, and I was like, I was probably 9 months in, and I was headlining this little shitty bar show, so I had to do 40 minutes in front of like most of my friends, and then and it was just like one drunk guy who was just like yelling at me from minute 10. Like I think I had talked about like fingering his mom or something. I mean, I was 9 months in. I was just saying wild shit to like get a reaction. Yeah. And he came down and was like, there wasn't a stage. It was just like a microphone stand in the middle of this bar room. And he came and, a foot away from my face, was like screaming at me and wanted to go outside, So pretty tough to keep telling jokes.
I was going to say, so did you keep going on with the stand-up? Or did you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I made fun of him. He eventually went outside, and I didn't go with him, and I just kept doing it. And, I mean, it was an awkward 10 minutes to close the show out after everybody had saw that. I wasn't good enough yet to like address what had just happened, so I tried to just like go back to telling jokes, and people were like, "Yo, dude, we just saw you almost get in a fist fight, you fucking idiot! Stop telling us jokes. Talk about that, So
true.
It's all part of it.
That's interesting, because Dom had said something to me before we got on here just about like physical altercations, and I was like, man, no way, like. But I guess, like you said, you get alcohol involved and you start saying some shit that's disrespectful to someone, like you probably like, who's it, like.
Yeah.
Joke or not, you know what I mean? I guess that type of shit goes over my head, but I guess it's more realistic.
And you didn't know Deakins had like a slick mouth and like has like a no holds bar, like comedic style to him. You know what I'm saying? He'll say whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Since we're talking about your jokes, like what what inspires you to be like such a vulgar, no filter type of comedian? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I try to like shy away from like vulgar. Like I think once you start seeing certain comedians, you realize you're not like that vulgar. Like I'm not going up there saying, the C word every 30 seconds and talking about, like use word. Right, no, I'm just to like, because you're right. I mean, there's definitely a spectrum where you got people who are performing like completely clean and doing shows for like in the basement of churches. I'm never going to be invited to do those shows. I have been, but I've never been invited back to them. So that gives you a good bar of what my target demographic is. It is surprising though. A lot of times you'll go into a show expecting them to be that type of audience. I did like a silent auction down in Warrenton, and that's a very white part of Virginia. Everybody's over the age of 70. I'm expecting them to be like very, very conservative. But after like 5 minutes, I realized like all they want to hear about is like sex and race. They're like sick of everything. Like they had told me to be clean, and just like 5 minutes, I was like, you guys still want me to be clean? So, a lot of times those audiences will surprise you, and they're like, talk about fucking her. They're bored. That's like their bridge club. They want to talk about fucked up shit.
Yep. I could definitely see that. I mean, so I guess what I'm like, what made you like say like fuck it, this is something I want to pursue? Like, you know, I know you mentioned earlier about how, you know, you're doing construction. So is that something you're doing full time and then doing this, you know, in your free time? Do you ever plan on trying to transition into doing this full time? Like, how do you know that you're growing your brand? If you know, like, what's the end goal here? And you know, what are some of the stepping stones about how to get to where you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's absolutely something I want to pursue to do full time. I think everybody who's doing it at a certain level and doing it, you know, if you're doing it over 1,000 times, you're going up every night of the week, and you're sitting there telling yourself you don't want to do it full time, then you're wasting your time. You know, there's no point, and there's no point in working like that if that's not what you want to do. I mean, there's people who do it as a hobby, and that's fine. You know, I don't begrudge them anything, but you know, if you're going up every night, it's no longer a hobby for you. And anybody who's telling you different, they're probably lying to you, you know, to protect their own feelings. But I think, you know, I mean, my dad, he worked construction his whole life, seen how that looks, you know, it looks like it sucks. It looks cold, you know, I've worked on his job site. It sucks. You know, now I've got a nice office job, but it's still for a company that works, you know, electricians, plumbers, and that sort of thing, you know, and you see how hard they have to work. And
every day, rain or shine.
Every day, man, you're in the same truck, you're showing up to people's houses, COVID-19 or not, dude, doesn't matter. You still got to go out there. People need their plumbing done. So, I mean, it's definitely, yeah, I will say this. I'm glad I'm not doing it full time right now, dude, because people who are got no income coming in, you know, this kind of makes you reconsider it a little bit, dude. It's a little,
but who knows this is going to happen though? Like, no one do this.
Yeah,
it's
possible.
So it's like right now, are you sitting down? You have like, you got some shit that you're ready, like once this whole pandemic's over, you got some shit that you're ready to let loose on? Like, is this like a good time that you get to harbor to yourself and like, you know, write some things down, go over them and like kind of critique yourself and like you see some growth in yourself from, you know, your first show to your 2000th show? Like,
oh yeah. I mean, 100%. Like, this is a great time to just like, I mean, one, doing different stuff than stand up, you know, you still are trying to get out there and get in front of people and see like, hey, is this funny or not? I think, you know, everybody's trying different they're trying, you know, Zooms or experimenting with different mediums to do comedy, whether it's Instagram or Twitter. I think it's easier than ever to just like produce your own content at this point. And, you know, it doesn't have to be high production quality. It can just be, you know, bare bones, but like as long as it's consistent and it's getting in front of people on, you know, a weekly to bi-weekly basis, I think people respond to that. Just having consistent content coming in, that seems to be the most important thing. But it's definitely a good time to just like sit back and write and rework your act and think about how you want it to look. So yeah, it's a useful time, but it's definitely like I'm over it by now.
Yeah, right now I'm sure you're ready to just get some shit out there, like, you know, just start getting back to doing, you know, the norm and, you know, seeing your reaction and progression. So
yeah, I mean, you guys do a podcast, so you kind of get it. You get when people like respond to whether or not they liked the podcast. You know, they're gonna write into you and be like, "Hey, that was a good one," or "Hey, that guest sucked." You know, but that's having the feedback is part of it, and so huge. Like when right, so like when you're doing something like stand up, dude, to have nobody. To not be able to like check in what the jokes is, I'm just torturing people right now. Like, hey, is this funny? And they're like, shut the fuck up. No one cares, you know. Yeah. So 100%. I had to download Twitter just so I could start like throwing some of that shit out there.
Start ranting on there. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, see if any of it's gonna stick.
Right.
So with since we're on the topic of like criticism and stuff like that, how much do you let criticism from your friends sway your way about going your like with doing stand up and stuff like that? Like, do you just 100% do you, or do you go to people that's like, hey, like, does this sound good, and you let them sway you from literally going a whole different direction with your joke?
Yeah, I'm a stubborn dickhead. So like, if somebody tells me that the joke's not going to be funny, then I'm gonna do it for 6 fucking months and let it bomb until I can make it funny. So I try not to tell anybody what jokes that I'm working on, because I know that regardless of what they say, if I think it's funny, I'm gonna end up doing it. So what's the point? But you definitely got to take the feedback of the audience. You know, if you do a joke more than 4 times, you got a pretty good idea in front of an actual audience. You get a pretty good idea of whether or not the joke works. And so if you're still doing it the same exact way, then, you know, I've seen comedians doing the same joke for 3 years and it never gets a laugh. And it's like, I mean, that's a dark spiral you don't want to be in.
Right. At some point, you gotta read it and
Gotta
keep
go.
moving.
Yeah, it's a scary situation to be in. So
I mean, I definitely talked to Dom about this. Something we spoke even about recently is, you know, as far as the podcast goes, obviously it's still a little bit early, so we're still trying a few things here and there to try to see what, you know, what sticks and what doesn't stick as far as topics, you know, what people enjoy and what they don't enjoy. Like, we've got to make sure we remind ourselves continuously, like, you know, although we like our friends, our immediate friends to enjoy, you know, what we put out, it's also not going to be catered strictly to them. So, like, we got to branch out from that inner circle that we hold, and whether they like it or they don't like it is awesome, but it's supposed to expand outside of that. So, like, don't tell me you don't fuck with it because it might not be for you. Tell me if it's good or bad. Don't tell me you just hate it and you shouldn't do it. You know, give me constructive criticism before you tell me just what you like and what you don't like. And you know, that's what we got to make sure we look past as well. I'm sure with you with the jokes, because you know them on an individual level, so it's more towards someone who might not know you.
Yeah. What episode are you guys on?
It's our 5th.
The 5th episode. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to even have anybody, like, if on my 5th show somebody was telling me how they thought my jokes were, I mean, that wouldn't have been helpful. You know,
Right.
You don't know where you are at that point or who you are, like, as a entertainer or just as, like, someone who's putting a product out there. And so I mean, that's one of the tough parts about you know, social media and being able to be constantly in contact with people is people start voicing their opinions on something. They never let it grow. You never even get a chance to, like, see what the final product was going to be. You know, I'm sure if I had been in front of a show, you know, if someone had a recording of the shit I was saying on, you know, show 5, I'd be fucking, I'd be mortified. So
100%.
You know, to judge anything inside of, you know, in its earliest stages, it's tough, but that is kind of like the world we live in at this point. So
since we're talking about, like, how you're looking back, like, let's say your 5th show and stuff like that, and it seems like you've probably grown a lot, because, like, with us, like, anything you do, you got to have some type of patience, and living in this now world, we want everything, like, now, you know what I'm saying? So as far as what you know now, what you wish you knew, like, when you first started, is there anything, like, that you learned that you would have told yourself that you should have done differently?
I don't. Yeah, probably not. You know, I still think, you know, every time I go up there, because I wouldn't have known what any of it meant. You know, if I tried to tell myself, you know, on show 10 what I've learned from this time moving forward, you know, it wouldn't be helpful because you wouldn't even understand the context of it. You know, it's so fresh and it's so new that you're just trying to get through the 5 minutes. You're barely even conscious of how it's being perceived by other people, how it's being perceived by an audience, or even, you know, your general structure of what your act is going to be and who you're going to be as a performer. I think, like, so much of that, if you learn it too early, you know, you see a bunch of people who go in there and they'll read a book about stand-up, or, you know, they'll watch a bunch of, like, master classes or whatever, some fucking documentary about how to do stand-up. You know, I mean, that's useful up to a point, but you don't know what you don't know. You got to go in there and just fail. You know, I think that's the best teacher, is just to fail over and over and over again. And, you know, if you're paying attention, and if you just have a little bit of self-consciousness and kind of understanding, you know, paying attention to what you're doing, then you're going to learn from those mistakes.
Got you. Because what I was looking for is maybe, like, a way of, like, obviously, you, like, the content, really, you telling yourself about switching stuff up as far as content, what really wouldn't do anything. But as far as us being somewhat in parallel worlds, as far as us being in a podcast world and you're being a comedian, one thing that I think really plays a big role in basically trying to, you know, get yourself launched is social media. How do you go about getting your name out there? Is it normally you just going from place to place and hopefully the owner say something about you, or hopefully your fans talk about you and request for you, or
I'm admittedly terrible at it. There's people who are great at it. There's people who are posting constantly about, what shows are doing, not only what shows are doing, but just, general content, whether that be like short videos or posting, jokes on Twitter. I just recently got Twitter, so I'm barely, I'm new to the game there too. I just got a website. I think all of that, there's so many tools right now, that sometimes I think people get a little bit lost in the idea that they have to be out there and go and take kind of a shortcut and jump straight to being seen and being famous and being known without doing all of the prerequisite work of being good. You'll see people all the time. You see somebody who comes in from like a spoken word background, they're not to name names, but people who are, have been, actors or whatever it may be. And so through name recognition, they can get in front of an audience of 500 people for a weekend. And, they don't have the chops to back that up from a stand-up point. There's definitely a fine line between promoting yourself and, not being able to back it up. And I think I'm probably on that spectrum. I'm a little bit too far in the not promoting myself enough spectrum. I could definitely be doing a better job at that. But I think for anybody who's coming up right now, I mean, it's a golden age. This is the death of the empire. Nobody's got anything else to do but sit around and watch content, and you got all the tools to put it out there. So
literally, I was gonna say if there was one thing you could tell, someone, whether they be like young entrepreneur or a young comedian or someone coming up, what would it be? But I guess you just answered it right there, which is like, you don't have shit else to do. I think I was talking to my buddy the other day, and he was like, he posted something on his social media and was like, yeah, my mom asked me, she was like, or told me like, people are gonna talk about what they did during the quarantine for the rest of their life. Like, have something memorable, have something important to tell someone that you did, or your kids, or your family, or whatever. Like, there's gonna be pictures of fucking people in like history books with walking around the grocery store with masks on and gloves and shit. Like, so have something good to say, have something meaningful to say. Like, don't just say I didn't do shit. Like, and don't ever say you didn't have the time. Like, that's been kind of like the focus that we've been having, is like, well, we don't have an excuse, at least not today. So like, we got to make sure we put awesome that the way you just broke that down is amazing to understand. Like, even in the comedy world, I would never even have known, the name brand shit that you were saying, like not having enough jokes to back it up, but having like the name of the face to get the draw for, what I mean? Like,
I think 98% of people, you're going to look back at what they did, and all of them will have watched Tiger King, and that's the only story any of us are going to have coming out of this. And that's embarrassing for like a near, our apocalyptic moment, and all of us just sat at home and watched, Dennis Rodman wear a dress and watch Tiger King. I mean, that's a pretty dark observation of our society. It's a bit of a bummer.
Yep. That's some crazy ass shit. I'm gonna have way more to say than that. I mean, that'll be a part of mine.
So we're talking about the average American, though.
I watched it before, but it's definitely gonna be more than just that.
Yeah.
I hope so, man.
Average American not gonna have more to say than that.
Hey, let me ask you this. Before I didn't mean to cut you off again, Dom, but as far as like if like, I don't know if you have a girlfriend or if you date around or whatever, are there certain topics that you do not touch as far as like when you're doing stand up, like as far as whether you be in a relationship, like, or like, some people dive into like religion and the LGBTQ and women's rights and a lot of touchy subjects for like certain individuals, like whether that be dating or with your parents or whatever. Is that ever like a conflict of interest with them? And are you strictly hanging your hat on like those are jokes, or like you also being like, hey, this is what I believe, but this is also what I do for a living, so you kind of got to live with it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that any subject is off limits or any subject is taboo. You just got to know that when you're doing a certain charged subject, the joke's got to be able to carry it. It's got to be a good enough joke to back that up, because anytime you're no one's going to get upset if you make a bad joke about bananas, but if you make a bad joke about the N-word, someone's going to be pissed. So you better make sure that your joke is actually on point, whatever it is, whatever the charged subject is. Just know if you're going to play in that territory, one, the audience is not going to be stoked. They're not going to give you the biggest leash. They're not super excited to go with you on there. So you've got to be able to back it up and actually bring something to the table that's one, new, and two, is actually worth listening to and is a worthwhile observation. Saying anything about a charged subject casually at this point, I don't think is that's just not the world we live in anymore. But on the flip side of that coin, I think anybody who's trying to shut down, tell people, oh, well, because of what your demographic is or because of the boxes you check, you're not allowed to talk about certain subjects. I mean, that's fucking ridiculous. That stands in the face of the entire art form would just be, would just get ready to throw it away, because what's the point then? Right. I think that you got to be able to touch on every subject, and not everybody's going to. That's okay, but you have to at least be able to have the choice that if I go up there as a performer, one, the audience has to be able to suspend their disbelief long enough to say, okay, this is a performance. The goal of this is to make me laugh. He's not doing anything that's purposefully harmful. Right. So there's a little bit of onus on the audience to do that, but at the end of the day, I think it's mostly up to the performer to get them on. They have to trust you. You got to get them on your side and be like, okay, well, one, this person's worth listening to, and two, we trust him to go into subjects that maybe we're uncomfortable with, but he's not going to go in there and just be just perfect. He's not a shock. It's not somebody going in there and just saying ridiculous shit just for the shock value of it. There's a point behind it. I think if you can do that, then you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. It's all about how good you are at talking about it.
Yeah, and your delivery 100%.
Oh, yeah. You get crazy shit. As long as that delivery smooth, you good. Talking about, delivery and stuff like that, you touched on it a little bit as far as you saying, you freestyle almost when you're doing your stand-up. So is it all right, you have 50 jokes in your head and you're all right, I'm going to hit them with this one. They like it, and I'm going to hit them with this one next? Or how do you go about doing that as far as you not having a set plan before you even get on stage?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, the most structures of a show, you're going to have at least a few comedians in front of you. So you're going to get to see, you're get a gauge of what the audience is. And even if you're what, they call the host, you're the first comic up, even then, joke one, joke two, joke three, you'll throw out some feelers. It's just like fighting. You put some jabs out there, see how your opponent's going to react to each of those things. I mean, that's how I look at it. You throw out some things that are broad enough to where you can gauge the reaction of whatever their audience is going to do, and you can follow it up from there.
So you see what they bite on, and whatever they bite on, that's the direct.
You got an
that
audience.
Shit really is an art.
Yeah, you got an audience, you go up there and I'm glad you think so. I'm glad that you had such a low opinion of it until I just said that. Huh? Nah, I mean, you go in there and you're like, who's family? And the entire front row is, a mom and dad of 55 with 9 18-year-old kids. You're not going to be like, how's, you remember eating pussy? I mean, it's not. Really build to that. You don't want to do that first. You want to kind of move them around a little bit, see what they're into, and then go from there.
All right, I'm gonna put you in a scenario. Sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
All right, so say you went to a club and your boys didn't tell you that it was a comedian club. All right, so you wasn't prepared for it at all. So you get a little drunk enough or whatever. You go up there and you bomb the first joke, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna give you the environment you're in. It's it's a mixed environment. Everybody's in their later 20s, lower 30s, right? So you just bombed and you talked about, let's just say you talked about the president or something like that. So what would be a joke? What would be a following joke after that?
So I went up there and I was like, Trump 2020, and they all started booing. Is that the scenario you're laying out for me? I don't like how you're painting me into that corner, dude.
All right, right. Tyke, give me one. I don't want to do that to you.
No. I mean,
you go in there, you paint me as this MAGA hat wearing piece of shit. I don't really see why you did that. I think that was pretty unnecessary.
Hey, with all this corona going on.
All you had to say was I bombed the first joke. I was with you. I could relate to that scenario, dude. I've seen that a million times.
All right, so you bombed the first joke. Then what? What you giving us?
Yeah, you gotta, you maybe want to talk to them a little bit about that. You definitely. I mean, some people would just hop right into the second joke if you got like, you did a joke you weren't that confident of, but if you just went up there and you just did your best joke and it bombed, and you've been watching the audience, not laugh at any comedian for the rest, the whole first half of the night. A lot of comics, you got two choices. You can just tell your 5 minutes or however much time you're doing and say every joke and just get through it and black out, don't even pay attention to the audience, just say them and hopefully you get off stage. Or, you can get in there and fight them. You can get in there and challenge them a little bit and be like, hey, why are you guys acting so fucking weird?
Yeah.
Why you guys stop acting like that?
Yeah, it's a fucking joke. Listen up.
Yeah. And even that's got a little bit of there's a risk reward there because, like, let's say a lot of times, I'm guilty of this to a fault where, if I don't get a reaction, I'll go into the audience a little bit. And sometimes they just don't laugh the way you were expecting them to laugh. Sometimes they're enjoying it, but you just happened on an off chance to get a room full of quiet laughers and you're expecting a big laugh that never comes. And then, early on, I would jump into the crowd immediately. And people would come up to me after the show and be like, "Hey man, we really liked it. We don't know why you seemed like you got mad." And
when you say jump into the crowd, are you saying like you'll fry the crowd?
Yeah, yeah. Like
why you not laughing?
Like
man, he's not jumping in the fucking crowd, beating him up.
Yeah, I know. But I wanted him to elaborate on it.
Exactly what you're imagining. I physically assault the first member of the audience that I see.
I didn't think that.
Whoever's in the front row is getting fucking drilled.
True, because I wanted to hear like a story when you went in on somebody.
It's just a little bit of crowd work. You kind of start talking to them. Just get them going back and forth. So because sometimes people are some crowds are more conversational. They just want to have a interaction that doesn't feel like it's being forced. Whereas, if you go in there and all your jokes are structured and it's, classic setup punchline, boom, and, tag, sometimes audiences don't like that. Sometimes they do respond to that. It's just you just got to be paying attention.
Gotcha.
They'll give you feedback. If they laugh, they laugh. If they don't laugh, they don't laugh. But at the end of the, 1 minute joke you just did, you found out a little bit about them, and as long as you're listening, you're gonna know what to do next.
All right. So with that being said, once the whole coronavirus is cleared up, what are your goals for the next year as far as what your plan is as far as comedy? Where do you see yourself going, and what are the next steps for you, and I guess moving forward with the whole process of trying to be better than you were yesterday?
Yeah, I'm trying to work on some things outside of stand-up that are still, comedy related, try to get, podcasts going or whatever that may be, so that at the end of the day, whoever, at whatever level you're at, people want to see a complete product. They don't want to see, so, you tell them I'm a stand-up, the first thing most people are going to ask is like, what else do you do? They want to know what else you bring to the table. And so, just trying to explore. I don't know what the word is. Explore out there.
Yeah.
Branch out. Just try to branch out and explore some other avenues. And I would say that's probably, especially with quarantine, you can't do many shows. Just experimenting with different things, whether that be short videos on Instagram or doing these Zoom comedy shows. I mean, they are not fun. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not what stand-up is. It's tough to perform for an audience, but it's different. Sometimes
you probably feed off the reaction, right, of the crowd. Probably what gets you going as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the same as doing anything athletic. You don't want to play a game in front of no people.
Yeah.
You don't want to do stand-up in front of no people because there's no energy there.
Yeah. 100%.
Like if you guys like when people comment on the podcast or interact with the podcast, you want to know that they're, that one, there's people listening, and two, that they're enjoying what you're putting out there. You need that, feedback. Otherwise it just kind of feels like it feels like a closed circuit. You're just spinning your wheels. You're just pumping out output, but you're not getting any input.
Nothing back, right? I got you.
As far as like different comedians and stuff like that, is there any one in particular that inspires you?
You got
inspires your jokes?
You got the questions on deck, man, huh? I always thought you were pretty funny, Dom. Always really enjoyed.
I mean, he's funny. He's funny looking. He's funny looking. I don't know how funny he is, but
that boy handsome. You see how the light though, you know.
Yeah.
Let me calm down.
You got jokes. I think I definitely watched a lot of stand up as a kid. You know, whether I loved Daniel Tosh as a kid. I loved Louis. You know, I loved Bill Burr, Louis Black. Some of those guys, but then just also things that weren't stand-up related, you know, Will Ferrell, and I think, you know, I think most kids our age grew up with South Park. I think South Park's probably the biggest influence that any of us have had comedically. I think it voiced, you know, what most of us, it is probably the most relatable thing that most of us saw when we were kids. And so I think that's, in everything you do, you know, you just can feel South Park's thumbprint on most of that shit. So,
Word. 100%. I can't agree with that.
I've always liked South Park. I'm glad they're still making shit.
Yeah.
You know, that's good.
They touch on everything too. So.
Yeah. Whose podcast do you guys watch as like a, you know, when you're breaking down film?
Look at you throwing back the question.
I'm a goddamn professional interview, dude. I'll tell you what.
That only means round it up.
This ain't my first time on a podcast, buddy. I'll throw it back at you.
True.
You guys
personally, me, I like watching the Joe Budden podcast, and it's not a podcast, but it basically is the Breakfast Club. That's like my main two I like watching.
Oh yeah, Breakfast Club's great, man. I mean, I think it's definitely interesting to see how many people podcasts in the course of 8 years. I mean, that's the number one entertainment people consume at this point. You know, I mean, it's such an effective medium for people to communicate with. I mean, who doesn't have a podcast at this point?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean, just like Dom, I watched both of those. I got into some of those with when I was living with Dom. Obviously, I enjoy listening to Joe Rogan's podcast just because he does kind of some of the similar shit that we do on a larger scale. He likes to also do interviews, just not more of just going on there and ranting about bullshit all day long. And I really got into this one. It was more of like an audio, like short film. It was when this dude, I can't remember this. The dude who, I can't remember the damn name. Serial was a podcast. When the dude in Maryland who got convicted for that murder, but they didn't know if he really did it or not, but he's been in jail about it for such and so long. I can't remember his name.
The white dude?
Nah, his name was like Adnan Syed or some shit. But anyways, look it up. But it was just more like that. And it was like, I really just understood. I really thought it was interesting how they could go on there and tell a story without any visual. It was kind of like reading a book, you know, again, like you get to paint your own picture in your head, but those, and then some of the ones that Dom listed as well, it's just, I always thought it was a cool way to voice and get your opinion out there, as well as not having too many people interrupt you during it, you know what I mean? And go back and forth. And I don't know, I just thought it was a real cool way to get some shit out there and stories, and also, you know, talk to other people with, you know, similar ideas and goals, being an entrepreneur, et cetera. So,
yeah, I mean, we're just like as a species, we're so wired for audible content and for consuming, you know, anything that's oration based. Like, I mean, you look at like how long people have been reading. It's only been probably, you know, I mean, written word's been around for less than 3,000 years. So you look at like how long people have been telling stories and that sort of thing. I think that little revolution of like audio books and podcasts and people taking in information that way, I think that's actually here to stay. Whereas, you know, I think most people, if you would have told them that podcasts were going to be the new wave of the future 8 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody would have believed you. But I mean, it's taken such a turn from, you know, what was just people going in a garage and talking shit to like the high production value that they are now. And, you know, I think that kind of takes a little bit of the charm away, but at the same time, you know, that's the natural evolution of things. It goes from being punk rock to being corporate, and, you know, it's just what's the next thing, you know? I think this might be the next thing. I think, you know, if anything, looking at how effective and just widespread the Zoom stuff has been, or any sort of like, audio component to, or visual component to the audio, I think that people are probably going to be shocked that, if you look back 5 years from now, I think that this is going to be a much bigger impact than what people are expecting it to be.
I mean, you think like I mean, as many people are not benefiting from this, there's still people that benefit from it, like, cable television, Netflix, Hulu, any radio or podcast stations, like you said. So anyway, people are like, the contactless delivery, people are literally manipulating whatever they can to conform to the surroundings of what's going on. So whenever it's a fucking weight, man, whatever way it sways, people find a way. So
in any time, there's always going to be early adopters for like whatever the product cycle is, and there's going to be people who get in on that ground floor, and they have a distinct advantage. I mean, you can sit there and try to fight it, but at some point, you see people like Conan O'Brien's trying to get into podcasting now, and it's like 10 years too late. Like podcasts are, they've been around. And he's trying to, and I think when you look at something like that, he's trying to take a format like his, TV show and turn that into a podcast. And they're not respecting the fact that the medium itself doesn't lend itself to like that type of show. 100%. Whereas, like what you guys are doing, you guys are just talking, and that's what people are sitting at their desk all day.
Not doing shit.
Bored. Not doing shit.
That's what it's catered towards. Like, what's something that you can listen to or do while you're doing something else, and without taking your focus too far off. But as long as you can still listen and understand the content. So.
Yeah, and that's exactly, that focus is a big thing, man, because you're sitting there trying to like listen to some fucking dense ass audiobook, and they're sitting there telling you all these dates. I can't tell you how much shit that I've heard like audiobook in the background, and then I try to repeat it to someone, I sound like a fucking idiot, and I'm arguing.
It's like I know what it is, but like I got.
Yeah, I know I'm right, but I can't explain to you why I'm right. And
then everyone's like,
just sitting there.
You told me a bunch of nothing just now, so thank you.
yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's try and wrap this joint up. All right, so I got one last question for you, buddy.
Damn, dude.
All right, so last question. That's on baby. All right, so last question. How do you want to be remembered as an individual?
I just don't want to die weird, I think that would so you ever watch that show 1,000 Ways to Die?
No, I don't watch shit like that.
Dude, there was a show that used to be on Spike TV called 1,000 Ways to Die, and it always bummed me out because it'd be these people who lived like, this entire life, but then they just like fucked up one time and, tried to like fuck a blender or something, and it killed them, and that's all anyone remembers, Nobody ever thinks about like that guy donated to charity, he had 2 kids, who's president of the homeowners association. All they remember is he got killed by gay bees or some shit,
Like, people just thinking about negative shit all the time. Like, Uncle Tony, he just died by touching the fucking socket in the wall. Like, what?
Exactly. Uncle Tony was a fucking idiot. Could have been a Nobel laureate, but like all anybody's gonna remember, he touched that fucking light socket like a dumbass, So I think if I can avoid going out in a lame way, I think I'd be happy.
I like that answer. Way to answer like a comedian. Hey, and I'm gonna call you out too. You dodged. This is how I know this ain't your first rodeo. You dodged that question when I asked you about give me a good joke after the bad joke. But I feel you though.
Dude, I'm not sitting here doing material for you. I just gave you a good joke.
A good comedian doesn't give away his content. I love you.
Yeah, man. You gotta pay for that shit, dude.
For free.
No, sir.
I'm geeked. Zach, you got anything to say?
Nah, man, I'm good. I just want to take some time, man. I appreciate it. I know you and Dom had a friendship before this, so I appreciate you taking some time, man, for us, man. Help you, help us, and, hopefully, this thing takes off one day, and, you be one of the first interviews and focal parts for it. So from me to you, from us to you, man, we appreciate it. This is, again, catered towards any young entrepreneurs in the area, outside of the area, trying to give them a platform in the Virginia area to help each other out. And like I said, being one of the first, man, we really appreciate you taking some time, and, it goes a long way for us. So thank you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. So any time to get some good content, good conversation flowing, man, we do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Go, everybody listen, go check out my website. I built it on Squarespace, and all my social media stuff's on there. So it's, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll
spell it out. We'll put it on the screen and all that stuff.
If you type in MatthewDeakinsComedy.org, it'll show up. I got a .org. I'm professional.
All right, bet. Hey, that .com was fucking gone. I know. I was looking at Matthew Deakins on YouTube, and I was like, "There's that many Matthew Deakins guys."
.com's hacked, dude. I'm .org, dude. I'm stepping it up. That's how you got legit.
You could be like Dom. He still got his VCU.edu shit as his main one.
The hell if I do,
dude. I would love to be able to go back and snag me a college email, man. You get a lot of free subscriptions. That Amazon Prime is still free if you sign in with your college email.
Really?
Yeah, I'm thinking about re-enrolling just so I can keep that Prime going.
Yeah, I'm sure like Apple and Spotify is like $4 or $5 something too with it. So
yeah, Dom's the smart one out of this group.
Oh, I know. Believe me, I know.
So you gonna believe this motherfucker? Hell no.
Nah, I'm lying. I seen your transcript, boy.
Hey, you seen that 3.5? But all right, man. Thanks for showing up. You know what I'm saying? I have faith in the boy. Hell of an interview. Glad to finally speak with you. I know it's via Zoom. We do gotta link up, me, you, and Jalen, and knock some beers down or something. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
I don't know if I'm with the aristocrat with the Gatorade.
With the Gatorade?
The Red Bull, but I might be able to knock down a couple of Tito shots.
Nah, we're going to be drinking Southern Comfort. We're going to bring it back to high school. It'll be a good time.
All right, bet.
Hey, man. It's been a pleasure, man. Take care. Good luck with everything going here forward, man. I'll definitely be keeping in touch and following you from here. So, man, I appreciate it.
Cool. Appreciate you guys. Stay safe.
All right, man. Be good.
Doses.